Welcome to Table Flippers Podcast, ministry of Greater Worship Christian Church here in Lancaster, California. I am your host, Apostle Robert Enos. Here we will talk about doctrine and theology, politics, social and cultural issues, and how the church is to respond and face these issues. Get ready for a large dose of truth and get ready to have your tables flipped. As a friend just told me recently, Table Flippers is flipping awesome. Hello, fellow Table Flippers. I have some exciting news. Table Flippers is now selling merchandise, table flipping merchandise. You can find our merchandise at tableflipperspodcast.com, tableflipperspodcast.com, and if you put freedom in the promo code area, you'll get 10% off. That's exciting news. Freedom, because that's what we're all about. Freedom as the promo code. So I hope to see you soon, and I hope that you get some of this exciting merchandise so that we can all look cool together. We will be flipping awesome. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. That's Proverbs 22, verse 6. Hello, this is your host, Robert Enos, Table Flippers Podcast. And I've been wanting to do this show for a while, one final show before the actual elections here in the next few days. And I had many topics that I wanted to cover, many things that I wanted to talk to you about. This party, this political candidate, these policies versus that policies. And I really wanted to go there, but it just nothing clicked with me. Every time I sat down, or every time I tried to prepare, nothing clicked with me. But what kept resonating in my heart was this concept of parenting. And I thought, well, that's a great podcast. It's a great subject, but that's for the future. That's another time. Let's focus on the elections. And then it's as if God was starting to say, wait a minute, do it on parenting, because that is about the elections. And as he began to mold these things together and bring them together in my own mind, I started to realize, yes, that's where many of us have been weak in. We've been talking about politics, we've been talking about politicians, we've been talking about policies. All of those are very important and we need to talk about them. But we did not bring that into the scope or the understanding of how we parent. And so as I have been thinking about this just for the last few days, thinking about parenting and politics especially, but every aspect of parenting, I started to realize where we have, as parents, have been failing. And when I say we, I'm going to be honest, even myself included. Now, all my kids are older and out of the house, but I realize now I could have done a much better job training them in certain areas, and one of those areas is politics. And I want to kind of share with you some of the things of why we need to recapture that and why politics needs to be discussed in the home, even down to the hows and the whys of each political party and even certain candidates. We need to train our children, because if we don't train them, somebody will. And we're seeing this right now. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's being taught in the schools today. Now, it wasn't so long ago that I was in school. I know it may seem like that. Some of you think I was in school when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. And it wasn't dinosaurs. Saber-toothed cats maybe, but not dinosaurs. Even when I was a kid, there was already strange things being introduced into the curriculum of many public schools. However, nothing as strange and just weird and just simply idiotic as it is today. There was a time in our history, in American history, when schools focused on what many have called the 3 R's. I don't know why it's the 3 R's, because they're not all R's, but the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that was the backbone of all school teaching and all subjects taught in school: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Schools used to teach our children and help prepare our children to be able to be productive members of society, how to get a job, how to fill out an application, how to read that application. They used to teach such things as cursive handwriting, which most schools don't teach today. They used to teach American history and world history. And right now, this thing that they call history, it's such a convoluted, distorted view of what we call history, know to be history, that you can't really call it history anymore. Back when I was in school, I remember in sex ed, sexual education, for those of you who need it all the way spelled out, but in sexual education, they talked about more about the biology of it. And we even saw this risque video, terribly risque, of a pregnant whale having a baby. They even brought that and used that as a backdrop to teach how, men and women come together, make babies, and babies brought into this world. And back then, there was no problem understanding what a male man was, what a female was, what really a woman was. And it came down to, again, science and biology, something that is being thrown away today. And it almost seems, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but it almost seems like there's some kind of agenda, to strip away our history and the proper teaching of history, world history and American history, to strip away the true sciences, including biology, and to strip away and distort a good, solid education for our children to make it in this world. It's almost as if our children are purposely being set up for failure. Now, I know, again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but again, back to what used to be taught. I remember when we went out to recess, we played, and we played hard, and we were expected to get out there and sweat and get dirty and as Nacho Libre would say, get our Weagles out, because we were out there and being active. I don't see kids active today like they used to be, but we were expected to be in some type of sport, and if not sports, we still had physical education where we did other things. Maybe not playing on the sport team, but we certainly played sports. We worked out with weights. We played soccer. We did push-ups. We did sit-ups. We did pull-ups. We did all of these things, and it was expected of us. And again, back to reading, writing, arithmetic. Reading so we can comprehend what we're, not just read, but comprehend what we're reading. So when we get out in the real world and our boss hands us a manual and says, I need you to memorize this or understand this or learn this. Or if we go and work in a machine shop and our boss hands us this manual on the particular machine that we're supposed to be operating, he says, I need you to learn this so you don't injure yourself and you know what you're doing. We learned reading so we can function in normal society. Writing, we learned how to write. We learned how to sign a check. We learned how to balance a checkbook. We learned how to write an essay. We learned how to look things up even before computers where we can Google everything. We had to go into the actual library and learn how to find the materials and read it from actual books. We were expected to read books and do book reports on them. Arithmetic. Now, here's the funny thing. When I was in school, we had to learn, we were expected to learn pre-algebra, even algebra, but pre-algebra was you had to get that. You had to take that class and pass pre-algebra before you can graduate from high school, at least when I went to school. Now they're doing calculus and things that these kids will never, ever use again. Most of them won't. Most of them. As a matter of fact, I think I've used algebra on maybe 10 times since high school. So maybe 10 times since high school. And half of those times were taking tests for different jobs that I wanted to get that I still didn't have to use algebra in that job. It was the strangest thing. Now, I'm not against kids learning these higher realms of math, algebra and calculus and trigonometry and all of that. I'm not against that. But why is it being pushed on our kids when they'll never use those things? And this is in the school system. So what is being taught now in our school system? It went from reading, writing, and arithmetic to teach and train our kids how to be productive members of society to Marxism. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in this nation and in our history, men and women, our fighting forces, have fought and died to keep such things as Marxism, communism, and socialism out of this country. There was a big push in it, World War II, and then after that, then the Cold War and all that, to keep communism from spreading on the globe. We fought it, and men and women, American men and women gave their life blood to keep communism from not only coming from into this country, but other countries. And now what is being taught in our schools? The very things that our forefathers died to keep out of this country. They're being taught in our school. Marxism, communism, socialism. As a matter of fact, I just read a little clip the other day that says that a young person can go through their entire school training. That would be from K all the way through college, and never hear a conservative idea once. You know how heartbreaking that is? It was that conservatism, that patriotic conservatism that made this country as great and as strong as it is. And now you can't hardly find it in any of our educational system because they've traded the truth, American fact and truth, and American roots. They have traded our American roots for Marxism, communism, and socialism. By the way, what's so interesting about all of those isms is they have failed everywhere they have been tried. No matter what nation or what time frame, they have failed. And now they're teaching it in our colleges and teaching it in our high schools and wanting to push this onto America, even though it's a failure of a concept, a failure of an ideology. So do you know what that tells me? Any teacher, listen to me, especially you teachers out there. You teachers, you better listen to me. You are not only just teaching a failed ideology and a failed concept, but by doing so, you are making yourself a failure. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care how many PhDs you have. I don't care how many letters you have before or after your name. If you are teaching something that's never, ever, ever worked anywhere at any time, you are a failure. And you're teaching our children how to be failures, and you're setting them up not only to be failures themselves, but to live in and even lead a failing nation that was once the greatest nation on this planet. Now, the United States of America is still the greatest nation on this planet, but let me tell you, we are losing our American exceptionalism rapidly because of what's being taught in our schools. And Marxism, communism, socialism isn't the only foolish, stupid thing that's being taught to our children. I'm not even going to say taught, more like forced. They're being force-fed this garbage. Another thing that's being taught in our schools, and this is starting, I'm talking in the elementary school level, as early as 3rd grade in some schools and some school districts, the idea of homosexuality and transgenderism. This is one of the biggest farces, the most disgusting, perverted failure of a so-called curriculum that's being forced on our children, and it's disgusting. The homosexual transgender agenda to groom our children so that our children, the children of today, become the new homosexuals and transgenders of tomorrow. Because they're being taught that that's the way to go, and that's the way it is, and that's just the way it's supposed to be. It's wicked, and it's evil, and it's stupid. It's just foolish, because it's breaking down the very core and fabric of what made America great to begin with. You look through all of our history. You go all the way back to when the people stepped off the Mayflower and wrote up the Mayflower Compact. You're not going to find a bunch of transgenders running around making this America great. You're not going to find anything about homosexuality. I'm not going to say homosexuals were or were not there. I'm saying it wasn't something that made America great. So when you're trying to push it in schools as if this is the way to go because this is what's going to make us great, or keep us great, or make us better for tomorrow. No, it's another failed ideology. It's something that's broken in our system. It's sick and it's perverted. And why would think about it. Why do we want men dressed like women? And I don't mean just dressed like women, scantily disgusting. I've seen some, it just blows my mind. It really blows my mind. I've seen some of these little clips of these these men dressed like women at story time in some school or some library. Okay, one, they're dressed very scantily, very trashy, very sexualized. It's just not like a man in a nice flowing gown. It's a man with like a teddy on or something very risque on, high heels, thick makeup, something that you would see walking the streets, in Westwood or Hollywood somewhere. And now that's going to be in there teaching our children. Okay, so the questions I have is, number one, why would a man dressed like that, acting like that, thinking like that, even want an audience of little children if he wasn't trying to groom them for the future? There's no other reason, ladies and gentlemen. There's no other reason for that kind of perversion to be, that kind of pervert and that perversion to be teaching our children. No other reason at all. It's disgusting. Okay, number two, what parent, and parents, you better listen to me. You listen to me. And if I offend you, well, that's your problem. What parent would want that kind of perversion around their children if that parent wasn't already a pervert? I want you to think about that. I would have a fit if when my kids were little and they tried to do that to my kids. Let me tell you, it would have been a bad day for them. It would have been a bad day for them. You're not going to drag my little boy or my little girl into some room with a bunch of perverts for any reason. Oh, we're just reading to them. Dressed like that, acting like that. Hey, go take off all that stupid makeup, sir. Go take off that stupid clothing. Put on some pants. Put on some regular shoes. Put on a regular button-up shirt. Comb your hair and get that makeup off your face. Then maybe, if you really had a heart for those kids, you wouldn't come in there dressed like a pervert. You would come in there dressed like a normal, decent human being. But because you want to come in there dressed like a pervert, the only thing that you want to do is pervert our children to look and act like you. And I can only imagine why. And this whole thing disgusts me. So parents, you think it's really cool and you're woke and you're just like on the cutting edge and you're so progressive. What are you? You're destroying your children's life. You're robbing them of a healthy childhood. And you're forcing them in a perversion that they were never created for. They were never created for. Men, biological men, are supposed to be just that. Men. Biological women are supposed to be just that. Women. Women wear the dresses. Women look like women. Men wear the pants. Men look like men. And don't give me this nonsense of toxic masculinity. Because it was toxic, I can't even say that word fast enough, but toxic masculinity that won World War I, World War II, and built the greatest nation this earth has ever seen, the United States of America. That's the value of what you now call toxic masculinity. But now men are starting to put on makeup and dresses, and we're going downhill fast. Just look at how bad everything is around us in not just in the United States of America, but in the world. Why? Because American men decided to stop being toxic masculine and started being feminine sissies. And sissies don't get the job done. Sissies are too busy trying to pervert the next generation to their level of perversion, where men are out there making a nation for their home, for their families, for their children, for their future. That's what men do. That's what real men do. And what I am seeing right now is you're turning all these so-called males into sissies and into women, where we got young men in these colleges that don't even want to get a job. They want somebody else to go to work for them and then just give them the paycheck so they can sit around in their dresses and play Xbox. It's disgusting. If that's you, male, if that's you, grow up and be a man. It's time for you to stop being a little wuss and stop being a little sissy. It's time for you to be a man. This kind of stuff frustrates me because it's called common sense, but common sense, there's no such thing as common sense anymore. What we used to call common sense, because it used to be common, is no longer common. It's an uncommon sense. Something that so many of our school teachers and professors in our college and now our young people just don't have because it's not expected of them. And what's the answer to all of it? You parents, you grandparents. Come on, grandparents and parents, you got kids. It's your job to make sure your kids grow up without all this confusion, that your little girls grow up to be true women and your little boys grow up to be men, not in dresses, but men who know how to work hard, who know how to pay their bills, who know how to increase their own value in the workforce, who know how to be moral, who know how to be righteous. It's our job, parents, to take the bull by the horns and to raise up our children and to teach them correctly. It's our jobs, grandmas and grandpas, to take our grandchildren and show them the America that we used to love and enjoy and show them how we can capture that back. Come on. It's time that we really start getting involved in our children's life on a whole new level. It's time that we start raising true men and true women in America again. It's time to break out of all this nonsense. And parents, you can do that. You have the authority. You have the power. It's time to rise up and start raising your children the way you would want them raised, the way God would want them raised. I want to close with one more verse out of the Bible. It's Ephesians 6:4. It says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but raise them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." The discipline and instruction of the Lord. Raise them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. When you do this, when you do it correctly, you do it right, there is no pervert out there that's going to be able to bring that perversion to our children. There is no Marxist teacher that will be out there to break our kids away from the truth. Because you, mom, you, dad, especially, will have instilled that truth in them, and they will live it all the days of their life. Thank you for joining us at Table Flippers Podcast. I'd really love to hear from you. Please look us up on the web at www.gwcclancaster.org. That's gwcclancaster.org. Or you can email me at gwccrobert@gmail.com. I'd really love to hear from you. Please let us know how we're doing. Keep all those comments coming. Until next time, you all have a great and a blessed day.